iHeartRadio.com and iHeartStation.
Siedah Smokehouse. It's the urban heat. Shout out to Coach Live.
Coach LA's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La. If you got something on your mind, you can call in, you can hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, loud, or get a business to empower you so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the urban heat, just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, beautiful people? How y'all feeling? It's another episode of Conversations with Coach La La La. Shout out to Nancy and Jay Hunt for that awesome intro. It's one of my favorites. I'll be in here jamming like, hey, go coach, go coach, go coach. So today has been a doozy, y'all. Y'all know I'll be telling y'all every week I'm so excited. And I am. Well, but I tell you, my bet on self mentality was definitely tested this week. My car has now been in the shop for a week, and I've been moving and shaking and getting around the city from lifts and just working from home. I am so thankful and grateful that I have the ability to create my own schedule and that I can work from home. So before I start to tell you just how overwhelming it has been, I had to really sit back and go, you know what? You come a long way, coach. You have really established so many resources and so many supports. So sometimes people think betting on self is all about you doing everything on your own. That's not what it is. It's actually acknowledging when you're overwhelmed and when you need support and asking for help. So shout out to not being or not suffering from strong Black womanitis, y'all. I do not be suffering in silence no more. And I am all about asking for some help. So thank you to all of the people who helped me out this week. I am so excited for y'all. One of the people that helped me out this week is actually going to be on the show tonight. So I'm so excited for you guys to meet her. And we're going to be talking about confidence tonight. You know that the first part of this series for season 7, we were talking about going and digging into our past and starting to heal and overcome barriers. And now for the second part of the series, we've been really digging deep to do that work, that self-work, so that we can show up as our authentic self. So I wanted to bring someone who I think exudes a whole lot of confidence, but also was really trying to step into her voice as an inspiring clinician. She actually is one of my interns, and she goes to Cambridge College. She is a aspiring licensed mental health clinician. She is a mom. She's an educator, and she is an author as well. Now, how about that? You got somebody sitting right in your midst who's written a book, and I didn't know. And so I really was like, you know what? I think you'd be great for this episode as we talk about what is the confidence code? What's the secret sauce? What's the magic that really pushes people out of their comfort zone to move forward and to want to bet on self? Because it's not that easy, right? You just don't necessarily wake up one day and have all this confidence. Where does it come from? Where is it established? And what happens when you lose it? What happens when you start to lose your voice and not feel so confident? So without further ado, I'd like to bring onto the virtual couch with me, Miss Siedah Moore. Where you at, girl? Let me bring you on stage. Hey. Hey. Let me turn your volume up. You got talking to the mic.
Oh, hi,
Yeah,
Coach
you got to speak up. You all soft spoken. I'm so glad you're here. I convinced you to come on here. I know you was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you bringing me on your show? But I think that people need to meet individuals that are on their journey of finding their voice, right? And have done things that they're still pushing themselves through, because sometimes you meet someone when they're already AKA successful and people don't see the journey. They don't see the process. They don't see all that it takes to sort of get to that place. So I know today I had to really convince you to do something you've never done before, because this is the first time you're coming on the radio.
Yeah.
Very first time. How's it feel?
I feel very nervous. But I mean, I'm here. I told myself like I do need to step out my comfort zone a lot and just, go for it. Just do it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you needed to do that? Like, what is one thing you told yourself that got you to be like, you know what? Because I know you gave me the big bug eyes at first when I suggested this, and you were like, you want me to do what? And then you were like, okay, I'll do it. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I remember you asked me and I was like, what? Oh my gosh, no. And then I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And then I think I had to talk myself up. I did a lot of positive self-talk. Like, this is what you've been asking for. This is what you said you wanted to do. Like, the things that I've been praying about, that I've been like asking God to move me. And I just kind of felt like, you know what? This is one of those moments. He's moving you. Be obedient. Move.
Yeah. Faith without works is dead. I remember I had Bishop Dickinson on. We were talking about, you often ask for guidance. You ask for opportunity, but you're not always clear on what that opportunity is going to look like. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes, you're like, I ain't ready. Not yet. And that's often what, I've been pushing her a lot today. So earlier today, we had the opportunity to do a workshop on, reflections of motherhood. Shout out to Conchetta and Mariah, who are the backdrop of Puff and Process, and also Diaspora with Ray. That too was a moment of just sort of getting out there and being able to see me in my element, but also getting you to talk and be vulnerable, which takes confidence too, to share your story. What was that experience like today, of just a day in the life of hanging out with Coach?
It was really busy. I kept up though. I think what I really enjoyed about the day was like the networking. Like, I got everything I wanted out of it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to build community. I wanted to network. I wanted to grow. I even got a little bit of healing out of that. So I just think like all of that in one day was just like really important for me. And it just was amazing just to see it come around full circle, just to actually see you run a group and facilitate that. So I that was an amazing experience.
Yeah. I saw, when I'm in that zone, like I am watching the room. So it's like I was able to see moments where you were actually really connecting with the different guests. And I know we've talked a little bit about just motherhood, reflections of motherhood, our own mother's wombs and things like that. So I would say today was a moment where we both pushed ourselves out of our comfort zone. This was not an easy topic for me to talk about. Although I feel like I've healed a lot, but being in that space, I knew that there would be stories that could possibly be triggering, and having the confidence, because my own imposter syndrome kind of kicked in today. Can you facilitate this dialogue, given, everything doesn't just magically get better with a parent that you've been estranged from. And the things that my mom is experiencing right now has been definitely challenging to navigate, extending her empathy and not ever really getting an apology or getting acknowledgement for any of the things that have transpired in my own childhood, and helping other people get to this space that I'm in, because I'm in a very good space, but I'm also acknowledging that the duality of it's still a lot, right? And you still get triggered. So thank you for sharing space and being vulnerable with the guests. I think they got a lot out of you being there and you sharing as well. So tonight we're talking about confidence. When you think about confidence, what does that mean for you?
For me, when I think about confidence, I think it first has to come up with like me just showing up, looking my best. Because I feel like when I show up and I look my best, I feel good. I do good. I'm just willing to want to just like take more of a risk. But I just kind of feel like I got to feel like myself first, because I'm already going to not feel comfortable with it. But I just feel like confidence is just like, at least showing up, giving it a try. Don't count yourself out. So I really feel like that's what it looks like for me.
So you feel like it's more of an action than a feeling, or do you think it's a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I feel like I gotta look the part to really like get into it. Like, all right, like this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna show up, and this is who you're gonna become. Like,
right.
You're stepping into it more so.
So you mentioned like, looking your best self. I think that always is a step. My shout out to my stylist and my sister, Amina Shea Style Journey is on here. And I know she constantly has emphasized, especially for women, looking good and feeling good, understanding, what things to wear in terms of your body type and, smelling nice, like all of those things are, I think, an added bonus, right? But they also can be sort of like a pseudo confidence sometimes, right? Because if those things are not there and you strip everything, do you still feel beautiful? Do you still feel confident? So I think you need to still feel like if I'm stripped down to nothing and I have no lashes, no makeup, my hair's not done, do you still feel as confident? And I think sometimes the answer to that is no. Like we don't always feel good and look pretty and always feel like we can do things. I know some people may push back and go, no, I always feel confident, but I don't think that's reality for most people. I think most people struggle with being in front of the room, being put on the spot. And one thing that we know is that for anxiety, public speaking is like the number one anxiety provoking thing that people do or people experience. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yes. So today when I tried to put you on the spot, you gave me the big bubble eyes again, right? So it's real. Like people like, oh no, don't call on me. So how do you push through that? Because I'm gonna pull you out. I'm gonna call you out again to get in front of the room. Today was my first day trying to get her to get up in front of the room, and she was like, I'm not ready. No. You should have seen. She's like, no.
I was like, no, but I think for me, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna get in the mirror. I'm gonna start reciting some stuff in the mirror because I know you're gonna call me out on it again, and I'm ready to step into it next time. I promise myself, because I'm like, you know what, this is what you asked for. Like you got to be prepared on the things that you're asking for. So I think for me, I just got to take those next steps and just like rehearse as far as like talking to myself, building myself up. Like Sai, you got this. You could do it. Don't worry about it. Just step into it.
And I love that. So you're gonna love this next question because I was warming you up for it. So now that I got her all, you heard that confidence, y'all. You seen that? She gave me that bass. She put some in. She pulled her chest out. She's like, yes. So that being said, who is Siedah Moore?
Siedah Moore is a mother, an author. I am a basketball mom as well. I am a master's student who's graduating as well. I just got so many aspects to me. Like I'm a mentor as well because I work for the schools. So, I give the youth healing as well. Siedah is just multifaceted. Like I just do a little bit of everything. I feel like I'm just, I would say I'm just adaptable and I just balance it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So adaptable, balance it all out. Sounds like a really confident person to me. Now you wrote a book.
Yeah.
What's the name of this book? Tell us about it.
This book is called An Ear for My Thoughts. I wrote this book at the beginning of the pandemic. And I wrote this book because like what inspired me is that the pandemic came, the world felt like it was about to end. And I was like, you know what? It's now or never, Sai. You say you want to write a book. What if the world really do end? You're going to leave without really writing this book? So I wrote this book, and this book was so therapeutic to write. I talked about everything from the challenges of motherhood, my childhood trauma. I also talked about love. I also talked about like not putting yourself first in love. So a little bit more like finding yourself. But it was just like me just putting my thoughts just on paper and just actually executing.
So what was that process like because a lot of people did a lot of great things during the pandemic. I know for a lot of folks, it was very traumatic, but I see a lot of creativity that came out of it and innovation, connection. Solitude is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it just gives you a moment to really connect with self. So what was that process like, really like developing the narrative for the book? And guys, I'm about to drop it in the chat so y'all could go buy it.
I think for me, like when I was really trying to develop that book, there was a lot of times when I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. I was talking myself out of it. And then like I would get on the line with my book coach and she would be like, what? This is what you want. This is what we're going to do. Like, there's no backpedaling. Like, she would even force me sometime to like go live and like, oh, you got to tell the people that the book is coming. And like, she would hold me accountable in ways too. So I was just more so like, oh, all right, so I really got to do this. Like, you said it. You can't be like backpedaling now. Like, oh no, the book's not coming out no more. So it gave me some like push too. Like, you got to do this. You got to finish it. Like, there's no backing out. I cried through it, writing it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so hard. Like it was really hard to like push myself to the limit like that. But I told myself, like, you're gonna start what you finish. And I always tell myself that when I start something, like, you're gonna start what you finish regardless. I don't care if you sad, mad, you just gonna have to do it. Yeah.
All right, y'all. So y'all know tonight on Conversations with Coach La, we're talking about the confidence code. I am Coach La, your favorite around the way therapist. I have Siedah Moore on the live, on iHeartRadio, on Instagram, all channels. We're also on Twitch. Any place that you listen to radio or podcast, we are on it, right? YouTube too. Tonight's goal is to bring somebody on that's actively working on confidence, building their confidence, and challenging themselves real time. Because I often bring a lot of people who have already did these big, audacious goals and they accomplished so much. But I wanted to talk to someone who's right in the midst of finishing a goal. Like, she's in school. She's aspiring to, start her own practice. She's at this pivotal place that some people find themselves, which is a pivot, right? And you can either go hard or go home. And so far, we're already giving you some things to think about. What's the confidence code? Of course, I'm going to tell you it's to bet on self, right? It's to believe, empower, and transform, right? That's the coding. But how do you do that? So we've already mentioned self-awareness, right? So being aware of who you are, looking good, feeling good, knowing what that looks like, and then making a decision. That's what I kind of hear when I'm hearing you say all of these things. It's like several decisions where even if you were scared, even if you weren't sure what the next step was going to be, you made a decision, and then you started to engage in positive self-talk, getting in the mirror, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and realizing you do not have to know all the answers, people. Right? You do not need to know all the answers. You do not need to always know what every step is. Just one step is good enough. Take that first step. And then guess what? The next step and the next step and the next step will come. You also talked about you had a mentor and a coach.
Yeah.
Right? There's no cliche to that. Like, often we need somebody else to help hold us accountable in those moments where we start to feel like we can't achieve, or, the negative self-talk comes, those childhood wounding, be it from your father or your mama, your environment, what you see, you never seen anybody else do it. So you got to find someone else that you admire, you respect, that's done what you want to do, and ask them how they did it, and then be willing to listen. Sometimes you got to be willing to listen and do what people are telling you, right? All of these things, right, are part of that confidence code. That's all part of the groundwork to make that next step, that pivot. Okay. All right. So the book, I put the link in there for y'all to get the book. You don't tell people about this book all the time. What's up with that? Yeah, I'm putting her on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot.
Yep.
It's not that I don't tell people about the book. I just kind of felt like the book was like so many moons ago that like life just started lifing. And I'm like, well, honestly, I kind of forgot I did it too. And then I thought about it like, I'm like, oh, I'm about to be out of grad school. I want to write another book. So that's what made me think about it again. Because I'm like, I don't want to be like just one person that just author just writes one book. Like, I want a series of books. I want to talk about different things, and even for the youth as well. So I think it was just more of a reminder for me to like, oh yeah, you did write a book. Like, why ain't you saying nothing about that lately? But I'm like, I want to get back into it because I'm an author and I do love writing.
Well, last time I checked, right, there's like billions of people in the world, right? And so although it's old for you, it's new for me.
Yeah.
Right. So shout out to some of the people on the live. What's going on? To my radio sister, Diane Vivian. Thank you, girl, for joining us. We got Reek Havoc is on the live. He said, what up, girl? Those your peoples. Your peoples is on here. They showing up and showing out. I appreciate y'all. Sometimes I wonder, right? I get so tongue tied and I wonder I think sometimes my brain is moving much quicker than my lips. So if y'all be messing up words and stuff, y'all got to forgive me. Shout out to Miss Opal. What's going on, Miss Opal? And shout out to everybody that's on Instagram. I have, I see you out there, Blue. Thank you for tuning in. Oh my goodness. What else we got on here? I got my girl Deco. What's going on, girl? I see you on there too. So confidence. When we think about confidence, it's an action, but it's also a mentality, right? It's also you knowing that even if you don't know the answers, you can figure it out, and that you have the capacity and the know-how to figure out the answers, even if that's asking someone for help. I think confidence is understanding that you do not need to know everything, right? And I think often we feel like we can't be confident unless we know everything. What do you think about that?
I think honestly, I don't got no problem asking a question or advocating. I'll ask you a question like, "Oh, coach, did you say this? Could you say that?" Like, and I just kind of feel like
she asks lots of questions.
Yeah, like I ask questions, but I'm never trying to like challenge nobody or nothing like that. I'm really just asking like to learn, because I just kind of feel like in order for me to be more confident, I need to be learning and I need to know it. So that's where it comes from. Just really advocating, just making sure like, your voice is heard. You got to say the things that you need to be met for you.
Right. So earlier today, we talked about trauma, right? And we talked about mother wombing in particular, and how trauma often plays into our confidence or even takes our voice away. And we were talking about different strategies and things to sort of regain that voice and regain your presence. And I know I had shared that a lot of it stems from really your self-agency and understanding that you are empowered and not playing the victim, right? And understanding where your strengths are, and also understanding that life is not happening to you, right? Like you are in the driver's seat. And sometimes when trauma happens or things that are out of your control, especially when you're a child, it makes you feel like you don't have control over your life. You don't have control over what you can do or what happens to you. So I think confidence gets built from your receipts. Those moments that, despite what was going on or how hard something was, you've overcome. And I think instead of being in survival mode, you switch into thriving when you start to realize your personal power. What do you think about that?
I think honestly that's so true. Like, just because like I feel like a lot of things that we already need, we already have within us, and we just need to like just sit still, take a moment, and dig deep and really find that, like, and just like you said, like everything's a choice. And like I think like when you choose you and you choose the things that you want out of your life, it gives you a better grasp on like, like just showing up and just being your confident self and going after it and just choosing that.
Yeah. It sounds so easy, right? Mm-hmm. But talk to me about moments where you felt like, you had to find your voice, or things were challenging and you lost it.
Yeah. I could talk to you about that. I feel like there's been so many times that I've told myself, like, like in the midst of like obstacles or like, life is life, and like you want to stay there and you just really can't stay there. Like sometimes you got people that's dependent on you. There's things you got to do that you just got to really be like, are you counting yourself out? Like I be having to ask myself that, like, Sai, you counting yourself out? Because it seemed like it, or like, just the mindset of like shifting it on, just thinking more so about like who are you? You done been through worse. Like I think when I think about the stuff that I've been through that's been worse, that is like, girl, get back up. Come on, sis. Like you gotta do this. Like you don't got no option. And I think just for me, like that's the way my life has just always been. Like I don't ever feel like I got an option to just be like, oh no, I'm not gonna. No, you gotta do it. You got people counting on you.
It's interesting that that's your framing, because I think I have personally pushed myself when I knew somebody was counting on me. Like if I knew that, they were expecting it of me, I wanted to show up and make sure I was there. I found that I would, in the past, not do the same for myself. Like I would show up for you before I would show up for myself. We said we were going to go to the gym. I'd be like, oh, I said I was going to meet Siedah at the gym, so I'm going to go to the gym because I don't want her to be waiting there wondering about me. But then when I go by myself, I'd be like, oh yeah, I ain't going to go today. So I have learned how to understand that, we talked about this earlier. How do you be your own best friend, and how do you hold yourself accountable in lieu of somebody else holding you accountable? So that brings us to the whole piece of therapy, right? Like, what does therapy mean to you? And even the decision to become a licensed mental health professional. So how has therapy played into not just your personal life, but also now something that you want to do for a profession?
I think just my personal life for me, it's just always been like picking myself up and like dusting myself off. And then like when I started to work with kids, I started to be like, I remember being their ages and going through some of the things that they were going through. And I'm like, oh man, they don't really got nobody to talk to. And like most of the times, like all the kids is like, oh, Mrs. Moore, they'll just come and just vent. And I just let them have it. So I think for me, like when the kids started coming to me and like just realizing I was a safe place for them, I think they were the one who pushed me more so into wanting to be into therapy. Because I was like, I remember wanting that when I was little and not having it. And then being that for somebody now is like, oh, okay, like I'm that for them. So for me, I just kind of feel like it's a full circle for me. Like, especially like the school that I work in is the school in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So for me, that's like giving back to my community as well. Like, so I just think I get the 2-for-1 with that.
Yeah. I think we did talk about that most of your work has been with kids. And I think we shared that in common. So when I ventured into wanting to be an executive coach, a life coach, I was a foster parent.
Yeah.
And I was taking adolescent girls, 14 to 21. I talked about that earlier today because my son was 2. And so I was working primarily just with young girls. And by working with them and being a foster parent and just lifing, because I was, in financial services, I initially just wanted to be a life coach to young girls, primarily young girls that were the age that I was when I started to really question who I was, started, to not feel pretty, was, my body shape, just all those things that sort of start happening around, I would say 12, 13, 14. Also, that's where I would say me and my mother's relationship really started to get more challenging as I became a teenager. So a lot of the young girls that were going into foster care were having a lot of mother-daughter dynamics that was causing some of this friction. And it's just interesting that we both share that, right? Like it really stemmed from wanting to help young people. And now it's evolved that I'm helping, professional women, and I moved away from youth. But that was my origin story too, was working with youth. And they like, well, why can't you be our therapist? And why can't you be our coach? And I was like, well, I'm your foster mom, quotation marks, right? Because of course I really wasn't. But we talked about that earlier today too, about mothering and, the idea of mothering being an action, and nurturing being about capacity. And so we talked a little bit about who was the therapist that I told you about earlier today? What was his name? Gabar Mate. And he was talking about, the earlier interactions with your parent, or lack thereof, really starts to shape your identity, and those unmet needs trickle into your adult life. So like if your mom wasn't really emotionally available, or she was neglectful, or she was verbally abusive, like how that plays into your confidence, or could even manifest into people pleasing, perfectionism, or fear of being seen. So I think sometimes when we have trauma, really strong trauma histories, we don't really see how that plays into how we show up. A lot of times we can understand if people are acting out, or if they have addiction issues or anger management issues, but we don't think about being shy. We don't think about not using your voice. We don't think about a hyper focus on, success being trauma related. But often for some people, it really is connected to those things. And it's hard then to find your voice and find the confidence without additional support. So when we think about therapy, how has therapy helped you and shaped you?
I think just for me, like the perspective, like there's been so many times that I've like hear the negative self-talk like in the back of my head. And I'm like, no, don't, like, like that's not what we're doing anymore. Like we're not doing that. Like I think just shifting my perspective, the things that I'm telling myself, like, just the things that I'm doing to take care of myself as well. Like the things that I'm allowing in my life, the boundaries, like, that I'm putting up to deal with people. So I feel like therapy has been the best tool for me. Even with just like finding my voice and advocating for myself. Like, cause before sometimes I get mad, blow up at people. And I'd be like, well, that's fine. Like, like I'm not mad about it. Like if that's what works for you, maybe we could come revisit it. Cause I used to get mad too and want to have a conversation that was difficult too, but it's like, that's not productive. So I think it's just giving me healthier communicating skills as well.
Yes. So for all y'all out there that's like, I don't know about therapy, I don't want to do it, and again, it's about fit too. Siedah is taking client, a little shameless plug. She is taking new clients, right? But I think it has a lot to do with fit, right? And I think for at least my clients, women of color, people of color, I'm talking about Black folks, right? We want somebody we can relate to, someone that is, gonna understand our walk, right? And that's not to say that everybody that looks like you is gonna understand you, because that's not always the case either. But for the most part, we want someone who we don't have to explain everything to in terms of colloquialisms that we use, slang, just what it's like to be a Black person, right? So I'm glad that you have, decided to come into the field. I'm also equally excited because I put a goal out there that I wanted to bring on 10 new clinicians into my practice to mentor. So like you said, you get what you ask for. So I still have like, what is it? Seven spots. So 2 more clinicians will be starting soon. 7 more spots to anybody out there that is aspiring clinician that's looking to be mentored into work in the field. Come on, join the team. All right. So something that I found that was an interesting statistic, 60% of women regularly experience self-doubt at work. And we've talked a lot about work without naming the school, without naming, just being in a professional setting, right? And how certain environments also impact your confidence. You want to touch a little bit on that? I mean, as much as you're comfortable with, but I would have to say I have got fired from jobs, lost jobs, quit jobs, and a lot of that shaped my level of confidence that I had to build it back up whenever things didn't work out at a job. I would immediately think it was me, which was a lot of my childhood trauma that I didn't know then because I wasn't a clinician. Now I understand it, but then I didn't. What do you think about that?
So what I think is that, like, I totally agree. Like, sometimes it's the environment that you're in, and it's like, if it's weighing on you or if it's a toxic environment, like, I kind of feel like that has a lot to do with, like, trying to mold your confidence, especially like when you're at work and you're thinking about like, oh, am I doing a good job? And like, nobody's even showing you or appreciating your work. I think for me, feedback works for me, but I feel like if I'm in an environment where I don't get it, I'm just kind of like left to feel like, you know what? I think you're doing a good job. Nobody said you're not doing a good job. Like, but I just think, honestly, as far as like, when you're trying to find your confidence, I just kind of feel like, and you're in a toxic you're in a toxic work environment, like, you just got to do what feels right. Like, a lot of times, like, my intuition's telling me, like, I'm listening to my body, like, I'm listening to like, oh, okay, well, like, we're going to work smarter and we're going to do it this way. Like, they did it that way. That is still effective this way. So I think just finding your groove and what works best for you.
Right. I do believe that receipts. Last week we talked about imposter syndrome, which is a real thing, y'all. Yeah, there's a great assessment. I think when I come back later, I'll add the assessment for people to take. And if you're a subscriber to my Facebook group, the Bet on Self community, I will throw the link in there. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. But I'll put the assessment and the workbook that goes along with it in the chat. I normally give that to clients, but if you're already at the subscriber, I'm gonna give that out for free. If you're interested in, inbox me and I can send you the link and I can send you the workbook. So I think often, right, finding those receipts and finding those things to sort of deal with imposter syndrome, which I still think is a trauma response. I think pursuit of perfectionism often comes from a place of not being validated, not feeling seen, and mistakes not being embraced. So sometimes there's no space for you to mess up, right? And I think educators can create that space too. So even if it's not happening at home, educators, mentors, coaches can also really help with corrective parenting to allow people to make mistakes. We all start off as beginners at some point, right? We don't all learn the same way. We don't all get everything at the same pace. And I think we just have to have more space for that. You know what I mean? Like, we expect kids to just be able to sit all day and just have a teacher up there and show you once, twice, and you're supposed to just know how to do it. Like, not everybody learns like that. Right. And I think those earlier experiences with education and making mistakes also cause you to not be okay with being embarrassed per se, right? Or not knowing, tripping up your words. One of the reasons why I started this show, which was to be okay with like fumbling a word, not knowing how to pronounce everything. Like, not everybody knows how to do that, and that often is one of the big reasons why a lot of people won't get in front of the room. They're just afraid of pronouncing something wrong, saying something wrong, stuttering, like all of these things that sometimes they tease you about when you're a kid. And so when you become adult, you don't want to get up there and be embarrassed. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's true. As far as like, a lot of times you don't want to, and that's one of my things too. Like, that's why you put me on blast. I'm like, to read out loud in front of the seminar. I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my God, what if I forget how to read all of a sudden? I'm like, I just get this anxiety in me. That's like, oh my gosh. I just think and I'm like the same way when it's time for like a presentation. I'm like, I don't know why I get in my head and like, oh my, like, what is it about it that I just can't execute? And I'm just thinking everyone's looking at me like,
they are.
And then I'm like, oh, they are gonna watch me make a mistake too at that. Like, so
they're looking at you. We're all looking at you. It's very true.
Yeah.
I'm about to age myself, but I remember watching the Brady Bunch, and I think it was Marsha. She was going to get her driver's test, and she was so nervous about the driver's test. And I don't remember who told her this part. I don't remember, but they told her to imagine the man naked so that she could laugh and like focus. So sometimes you need a distraction. You need, once you know why you're nervous, which is one reason why I do the show. I purposely said, you know what? How do I be the change in the world? Right. I've been watching a lot more TV. Shout out to my sister. She's like the gossip blog extraordinaire. I really don't watch that stuff. But recently I've been going and watching other shows and watching other people present and podcasts and radio shows. And I'm like, they mess up too. They mess up too. They don't always say everything right. They stutter their words. They don't know how to pronounce everything. Like, it's okay, people. It is okay. And I think more of us got to be okay with that. And even if they do want to clown you and they want to make fun of how you pronounce something, or they want to say you can't read, just come back with some Blue Ivy energy. They was telling her she can't dance. Go practice in the mirror. I use Google. There's so many words I don't know how to pronounce. My sister, everybody will tell you, I should have got hooked on phonics. I had that problem in the first grade and the second grade. Pronunciation has never been my strength, right? And I'm so glad that I had other teachers and mentors along the way help me be okay with that, right? And tell me it's okay and to keep on trying it. And one of my biggest fears was doing this show and like messing up something and not sounding smart, right? And people don't care so much how smart you are. They care about how you make them feel anyway. People in this day and age want authenticity and people to be real, right? And I just value that, if I'm one of the few people that's on social media, that's who they say they are. When you meet them offline, online, then guess what? I'm doing the right thing. There's so many people that are just, they're not necessarily that way. And that's cool. But Coach La gonna be Coach La La La. What's going on, Queen Lady P? I see you, girl. Thank you for joining. It's all about really pushing yourself to bet on self, and that is to believe in yourself. That is to feel empowered and not to be a victim anymore. If you ever were a victim before and someone took your power away, it happens. I understand that. But if you've come out of that and you're on the other side to talk about it, you've survived that. What can you do with that energy so you can thrive, right? So did you know that people suffering from imposter syndrome may be at risk for anxiety? And I can understand that because you're always on edge and you're always worrying about the next thing. So this is another reason why, like, use your receipts and why I'm encouraging people to build up their confidence capacity. Because anxiety a lot of times is situationally induced. You're worried about the next thing. You're worried about other people's opinion. And that's really what causes you to be anxious. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the overthinking too. Like, sometimes in my mind, I'll create a whole situation that never even happened. You just run with it and you're like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And I'm just like, be present. Just be present side. Like I just often have to tell myself that just to like get out my head. Cause like if I go there, it won't get me nothing that I want out of it.
Correct. The other thing, people, is imposter syndrome is common, but it's not permanent. And I think, again, I said this last week and I say that this week, the confidence code is your receipts, right? If you want to look at that as like a cheat code, or if you want to look at it as like your password to, unlock it, is like your receipts unlock your confidence, right? That is really, keep this in layman's terms. That's how you build your confidence, is to look back at the things that you were able to accomplish. And more importantly, to practice gratitude. We talked about that earlier today too. You can change even the most negative situation into a positive by looking at gratitude. And the gratitude could be, dag, you know what? I'm glad I have a resource. I'm glad I was able to get on the other side of this. I'm glad I'm not starting from scratch, but like finding something to be grateful for. My car's in the shop and I could have completely panicked and jumped out the window, but I'm grateful for you, Siedah. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for that I have resources to pay for a lift. I'm grateful that my brother's new mechanics. Like, although this has been completely just not something that I wanted to deal with this week, there were all these other things for me to be grateful for that helped anchor me to not completely get stressed out about my car. And I had a good cry with my sister. Shout out to my sister, Renisha. She let me cry and have my moment. And I had to realize, but I'm not where I was before, right? There was a time I had no money, like real talk, negative money. So if the car would have went down, there would have been no way to pay for it. It would have had to go in the driveway. And that's not the case. So I'm grateful for that. So how has gratitude played into your confidence building?
I think for me, I always tell myself, baby steps are still steps forward too. So that's really a big one for me, because it like sometimes you feel like you're at a standstill and you're not moving fast enough, especially like with everything you see on social media and everything's good and everyone's okay in their career and everyone got it. I think I'm just grateful for what I do have. Like, like it's simple things, but I live a really modest life, and I'm really thankful for the things that I do have, because I remember the times that I didn't have. Like when you said you didn't have a car, I remember not having money to fix my car. I remember being homeless. I remember not having nobody there, but the people who did show up for me, I'm so grateful for them. So I think for me, I do think about like it could be much worse too.
Right. It could be. And that, again, doesn't take away from what your experience is. Sometimes when people say it could be worse, it sometimes feels like it's not validating, right? And you don't feel seen. But I think that statement is to really help you to realize, like, you know what? You're going to be okay. Right. You're going to be all right. And, we've all survived 100% of our worst days, which lets us know if another worst day, another bad day comes, you're going to be okay. And I had to remind myself about my car. Even if all else fails, that this man can't figure out what's wrong with my car on Tuesday and I don't have my car. I've been without a car before, right? And I did not die. I did not fall apart. And I had a 2-year-old not having a car. And I was on the T going 2 buses, walking up hills to drop a 2-year-old off to daycare and then walking down the hill and up the street and around the block and getting on the train and getting off a train and walking just to get to a job. Like, I ain't even in that situation. My son is 19 going on 20. I ain't got to tote around a 2-year-old. So I'm still in a better situation. I've already overcome so much, and I'm so grateful for that. So I want y'all to think about that confidence code, right? I then gave y'all some more stuff to think about, right? Which is gratitude. How is gratitude playing into your ability to move forward and to feel like you got it, right? And thinking about the things you've already overcome. All of these things build up your receipts and allow you to feel like you can do it, right? And when I talk about betting on self, that's really what I'm talking about, is how do you change your thought process into one of strength, one of encouragement, one of empowerment, that you can get to the other side. Once again, you guys are tuned into Conversations with Coach La 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 right here on the Urban Heat. We are Boston's only Black-owned radio station. That is on iHeartRadio, and that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to my Urban Heat family for all that we do to make this an awesome radio station. So we talked about the narrative and the script of the strong Black woman, right? And we talked about that earlier in our group that we did, and how this this psychological phenomenon that we bought into, a lot of us, about strength, how that has been detrimental to both our confidence and our ability to ask for help. And shout out to one of my really good friends, Vic Breedy, who coined the whole concept of strong Black woman-itis being a disease that Black women suffer from. So let's talk about strength. Let's talk about how that's played into, one, building your confidence, and also how it's hindered your confidence too, to try to always be strong.
I say where it's hindered it has been at the times when you didn't want to ask for help, or I was like, oh, I got it, and being burnt out and tired and thinking I got overwhelmed, having anxiety attacks all the time. Like my body would let me know, like, oh, this is really starting to be an issue for you. The times where it's helped, I say it's helped with like building my resilience the most.
Yeah, let's talk about resilience. Because I don't know that everybody understands what that is. Because I think that resilience, to me, that's when you're thriving, right? Your ability to bounce back from a setback. And it's really about how quickly you do it. So we talked earlier in the group, we were talking about trauma and trauma-informed care. And I really think that we sometimes get so stuck in the trauma narrative that is partly why we don't grow. Like, bad things happen, folks. I hate that. I hate that for us. I really wish the world was, better, and that humans would be kinder, and that, there weren't people who were just not nice. But unfortunately, yeah, I don't think that that's going to go away. I don't think that we ever going to have utopia and everybody's just going to be good people. You're going to have people that are narcissistic. You're going to have people who are just not nice. You're going to have liars. You're going to have people who are looking to get over. You're going to have criminals. You're going to have murder. And I know that might make some of y'all really, really uncomfortable and make you really sad. And that's okay. But at the same time, there are a lot of great people in the world. There's a lot of people who would take off the shirt off their back and help somebody. There's a lot of people that are doing great things in our community and the great things in the world. And we can choose to see what those people are doing, or only focus on the things that people who are not so great at doing. And that's a choice, because we won't be able to completely remove them. But if we were, and I challenge everybody, even for the next 24 hours, all you did was encourage, share positive things, like positive posts, tell somebody something kind, and we just actively, those that really all the time just actively did that, the world would be a different place. What do you think about that?
I think that's true.
We feed into it. It's like there's a part of us that likes the drama, right? We like the shocking. We like, watching things that make us, squeamish. It's part of, I think human psychology, that there's a part of us that likes to be a little scared and likes to kind of be pushed to the edge and live in that space. So I think there's space for both, but I think we just have to have balance. For every ratchet thing you watch something positive. For every post that you share that's not the best, share something that's uplifting and encouraging. 50 Cent put a post up about his entrepreneurship program, and he was like, yeah, when I post stuff like this, y'all don't like it. Y'all don't give me the same energy unless I'm being petty and doing crazy stuff. Those posts go viral. That was from 50 Cent. And he's not lying, right? He's not lying. And I challenge people, if that triggered you or you felt some type of way, do something about it. Share something positive. Do something kind. Switch your own energy, because you can't point fingers at other people if you're actually perpetuating the same nonsense. At least that's me on my soapbox. Anyway, I know y'all like, whatever, coach. But I think that everything has a positive and a minus. So being strong can be a positive or it could be a negative. Being too kind could be a positive or be a negative. I think there's always something that you do great could end up being a detriment. Like, I like to talk, and sometimes I suck up all the air, right? I talk too much. I need to make space for other people, like I'm doing right now. So let's talk about microaggressions. How do you think microaggressions play into people's confidence or lack thereof? And should we tell them what it is?
Yeah.
Or do you want to break down what a microaggression is?
No, tell them what it is.
So microaggressions are basically, there are these moments where people sort of will use, if you're part of a protected class, they'll use those things against you. Like, oh, wow, you speak very well for a person of color, or wow, you drive really good for a woman. So there's any of these things where it's sort of like a sneak diss, to keep it really simple. What you think about that? How would you define it in a different way?
No, that seems right.
That's a real simple answer.
Yeah, no, I would agree with it, but I just kind of feel like with microaggressions, I just kind of feel like I'm more of like a passive person though. I don't really try to like give too much stuff energy, like just because I kind of feel like, you know, whatever you feed grows. So I'm more of like, I try to stay on the positive side. So I mean, if you throwing shade or trying to be some type of way, I usually just be like, I don't got time for that. Like, I'm really trying to protect my peace these days, and like in my adulthood, that's just how I feel like I'm in control. Like I just don't have time for the negativity or anything like that around me. So
I would agree. I don't think we have, I think most people don't have time for it, but when it comes in like a work environment. So a microaggression is a subtle, often unintentional verbal or behavioral communication that is derogatory, hostile, or negative towards a member of a marginalized group. Right? That's the textbook definition, right? So even though you're trying to like bob and weave and do the matrix around it, it doesn't mean that stuff is not being said or it's not being directed at you. And sometimes we can't just ignore it. Sometimes you have to double down, and you have to actually say, you know what, use your words and communicate. I found that statement offensive. Please do not say X, Y, and Z to me again, because you know you're making this space unsafe. And if you can continue, I'm going to do A, B, or C, right? So I think that's, again, confidence, right? To be able to stand up for yourself in spaces and places, even with people who are perceived to have more power than you, is something that we have to all practice constantly, especially if there's a childhood trauma, especially if there's moments where you felt like your voice was taken away. We can kind of turtle up and engage in people-pleasing behavior, or just be like, oh, I ain't really tripping off of that. I don't care about that. But it's not really true though, because that stuff kind of will ruminate and play in your mind, or you'll start to disconnect, avoid, right? And sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, people. We gotta fight back verbally. Anyway, what do you think?
I mean, I kind of feel like as a Black woman is like a thin line though, because I feel like when you do advocate for yourself, oh, she's too hostile, or like,
okay, I'm glad you said this. Go ahead. What
and
else?
then I kind of feel like when you don't say nothing, it's like, oh, what's wrong? Is everything okay? So I just kind of feel like there's a thin line between like, you know, just being like real, like advocating for yourself.
There's a thin line between love and hate. Yes.
Really just trying to like, I'm just trying to speak up and advocate for me. Like, you know, I don't, and sometimes it's taken the wrong way, because it's like, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit more passionate when I said it to you, because I'm standing on business when I'm saying it, and I mean what I say. So I just kind of feel like it's really one of those spaces where you really got to tread, I don't want to say light, but I'm still trying to figure it out on how to navigate on what I need to say without feeling like it's trying to come off as combative, or people receiving it as combative, even if it's not, just because like when you're like in a society where they're like, yeah, you shouldn't be saying nothing, like you're the worker, or you're like, I'm
so glad she's saying this,
like
y'all.
When they say that to you, you just kind of feel like I
just poked the bear. Poked it. Because this is real. Yeah. And I think as a Black woman that's been in professional settings, I think as a psychotherapist, people come to therapy because they're feeling disempowered. They're feeling anxious at work. They're feeling like they don't have a voice. This is real. Thank you, Ashley. Ashley said it's almost like someone slowly chipping away at your confidence. And it's true. And if you come from a trauma background, sometimes you really don't know how to combat that, right? You don't know how to sort of find your words, right? You can literally feel like you're fawning, like your voice is gone, like you literally get knots in your stomach and you just can't even speak. So I told you, look how fast this show's going. We got 6 minutes. Told you, faster, I don't know what. So let's talk about bet on self moments, and then I got to do Coach's Corner, and then guess what? The show is a wrap. I hope you guys have been enjoying this episode of Conversations with Coach Lodge. You guys get a chance to sit on the virtual couch. We're here every Sunday, 10 p.m. right here on the Urban Heat. So, bet on self moments. Let's talk about a bet on self moment, either now, currently, or something that you are actively working on, where you are taking control of your narrative, where you are stepping out of your comfort zone, where you're saying, if not now, then when, and if not me, then who? Bet on self moments are defining decisions where you get to choose healing, growth, or change, even when it's uncomfortable. Siedah.
Yes.
Tell us about your bet on self moment, girl.
My bet on self moment is right now. I am so uncomfortable moving into this new virtue of my life. But every day I'm choosing, like, you know, side, you got to choose you. Who's going to do it for you? A part of me kind of feels like I just got to really step into it. And as I do it, I'm praying through it. Some days I'm crying through it, but I told myself, like, we not giving up. That's just what it is. We just not giving up.
That is not an option.
It's not an option.
Right. And I think when you think about failure, people often think that the mistake is the failure. The F up is the failure. It's the not even trying that really makes it a failure. You will always miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. Right. That's guaranteed. But if you keep on shooting for it, you keep on putting them up. Some of them are going to land. Right. And if you're strategic and you practice and you get that, you know, that jump shot together and you get that free throw game together, guess what? You have more of a likelihood that they all will go in. So, you know, got to just keep betting on us, you know, and when those moments you're not sure, go get help, go get support, you know, tag somebody in, you know, let people know how you're feeling and what you need. You'll be surprised who might show up for you. You'll be surprised that often we're so focused in on getting people that we think should be showing up for us to show up for us that we miss all the people that are like, hey, put me in, coach. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. Because you only focusing on who you think your star players are. But sometimes you need to look at the bench, the people that you got on the sidelines that could actually really step in and really be some strong players in your life if you only threw them the ball. Ashley said, I'm proud of you, Siedah, to keep going. I know that's right, girl. I'm proud of her too. Listen, she claims she ain't going nowhere, y'all. Like she's staying and ain't going no place. I said, okay, we'll see. You love me now. You love me now. You don't know you're going to love me forever. So let's talk about Coach's Corner, right? We're gonna segue into Coach's Corner and you know, tell y'all a little bit about that, because literally we only have like a few minutes left in the show. I cannot believe how fast this went by. Shout out to Mr. Dita Weeder tonight. He's throwing his Zodiac party over at the Russell Auditorium. So I got to change, get dressed, and go head over there and wish him a happy birthday. So we're going to end on time. All right. So Coach's Corner, a moment where we reflect and gather key takeaways. And I leave you with something to carry you forward on your journey, your bet on self journey, to be exact. So let's talk about this, right? This week, how are you showing up for yourself, right? How will you demonstrate that you have confidence? How will you be able to make that mindset shift that you need, right? To reconnect with yourself, to recommit to your goals and remind yourself that you are worthy of not just peace, but progress and power. How will you do that? So this week's Coach's Corner is all about choosing to show up, especially when your confidence is wavering. Practicing those daily mirror affirmations to reprogram your inner narratives, right? That's what we talked about with Louise Hay. We talked about that. We also had guests that came on and talked about this as well. Use boundary setting phrases like, I am not available for that energy today. Let's say that together. I am not available for that energy today. You can try Jesus, not me. You got to allow for discomfort. Allow discomfort to be the evidence of your growth, because often when you're uncomfortable, you're being pushed out of your comfort zone. Remember that your presence is more than your voice. It's your energy, it's your eye contact, and it's your refusal to shrink. Let's not shrink this week, people. let's show up, let's show out, let's bet on self, let's make sure that we are seen, heard, and more importantly, that you're seen and heard with yourself. Wake up in the morning and look at yourself and tell yourself that you're great and you're going to have a great day. Practice gratitude, and I think everything will work out. Confidence is not about being the loudest person in the room. It's about knowing you deserve to be in the room. And sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a roar, and sometimes it's often about just beginning to believe that you are supposed to be there. But it always begins with a belief, right? If you take nothing else from this episode, take this. You're allowed to take up space. You heard that? You are allowed to take up space, and you're allowed to be both learning and worthy. Hold on now.
Urban Heat. Expect the unexpected. Unorthodox radio from Boston and beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeartStation.
So you know what that means, right? Thank you for tuning into another episode of Conversations with Coach La. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's episode. Make sure you come back for another hot conversation on the virtual couch with Coach La, your favorite around the way therapist. Thank you, Miss Siedah, for coming and being a part of the conversation. And I'll see you all next week. Have a good night. Don't you forget to bet on self. See y'all then. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, to tune in on all the different platforms. Make sure you tune in next Sunday, 10 p.m. right here on the Urban Heat. Good night.